I got my name tag somewhere here, but I called Jill. Jill, yeah. Jill Hoffman. You got me.
Yes.
Now what do I do?
So if you'd like to, you can take pins, take some stickers. We have our agenda here.
You know what? What is that thing?
This is just the postcard.
Oh, the postcard. No, that's okay. I'll try to save it. And then a pen? I get a pen?
We have pins, we have stickers, we have some accessories for this.
This is so great. I'm going to take this to my friend who couldn't come. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Merrill College out of this world. Oh, I'll take two of those. Unless you need them, you probably need them. Okay.
All right.
I got that one already. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Take care.
Hello. Good morning.
David Pace.
It's only 4.
I shall add you.
I registered yesterday, so I don't know if it was too.
No problem. I can just add you in right now.
Okay. All right.
Feel free to take buttons, stickers.
What, did you RSVP, mister?
I did, but yesterday.
You are not
I got some
allowed.
information from your protesters.
Who's protesting?
There.
This would be my husband.
Oh.
Oh,
There. He's there.
oh, where are they
The
protesting?
meadow.
Oh, okay.
I guess I should put the year, huh? I'm actually a Merrill alumni.
He's so proud. He's a proud Merrillite.
Yeah, I had a mailbox up here. I never lived on this.
Can I have your names, please?
Linda Lampson, whether we signed up for this is a
We have
question.
here.
Okay.
And
Mark Meyerding starts with
Yeah,
M-E-I.
you just passed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
so
And we put
y'all
a name
can
on
get a
it.
name tag, get some stickers.
Yeah,
We
cool.
have the agenda for the day,
Got that.
postcards.
Yeah. I think I got most of that.
We were having trouble with the
Oh,
application.
the WOVA app, mine just has 2018 on it, not 2019. Has anybody else complained about that?
You can go inside and talk to Dina,
Okay.
and she can clarify all that.
Dina.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Good.
I might not be the right person, but hi.
Well, I can show you the problem.
Right? So I was student leadership development, did the student government, commencement, moved in, everything in between. Yeah.
Okay, we have slug things that we got. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'll take another one of these. I think this is good.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Have a good one.
Hello.
Good. Hi there.
That's Stephanie.
Hi there.
Stephanie.
Hi there. All right. And thank you for doing all of this. And they're adorable.
Yes, they are. All right. Good morning. How are you doing today? May I have your name, please?
I'm sorry, what?
May I have your name, please?
Sure, Nick Royal.
So you're not in, but I'll just add you in right now. Nick or
Nick. I see.
Nick?
Yeah. I'm being, so what's the thing on the top do? Is that a?
Yeah, it's a microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, if you're doing videos or something.
Yeah. It helps.
So here we have our name tags.
Sure.
Feel free to take any stickers, a
Yeah,
button,
I'll just take them.
alumni agenda. And then you can go inside with some
Sure.
refreshments and snacks.
I used to run the field program years ago.
Western Washington Honors College. Yeah, that was her first choice, like at the beginning of the year. Like when last year she went there, she liked it. And then we went through the whole process. She, applied to 11 colleges, got into almost all of them. We went. Yeah, I was the first. She went, they were just, she went to a couple of things that they had.
It was a Friday. It was a Thursday. It was a Friday.
Yeah, she showed up. Whatever it takes to get you through it.
And if you don't, that's okay. Thanks.
Good morning. Hi. How are you?
Well, this, they don't, so it's really nice and the young man who comes over. Nothing to
Alumni weekend when we honored Nick for having founded and run our field study program, which we were then planning to reinvent. We have since reinvented the field study program in a much different form than it was when they ran it. But it has been running for the past 6 years. It might be 5 years, I haven't. At a certain point I stopped counting numbers. But what I thought we might begin with is just a brief introduction of everybody in the room. I thought I'd ask you, this is going to feel like your Frosh core class. Could you give us your name, your year of graduation, and what brings you here to this meeting this morning? Or perhaps what brings you back to Merrill College this weekend? And so maybe we can begin with Linda.
Sure. I'm Linda Lamson. I graduated in 1970. And she's also a graduate, 2000. And two, I think the last few times we've been to Merrill, and especially been to your breakfast, there's just this sense that Merrill's doing some very special things for students who would otherwise be on the fringes and the edges. And that's worth supporting. Thank you.
I'm Mark Meyerding. I graduated in 1969, which was the first year of graduates. There were 12 of us. And Linda and I are together. We met here. And I would agree with what she said about the last couple of times we've been here. Just a very exciting feeling and exciting to hear about what's going on with Merrill students now, and both the opportunities and the challenges. And it also, given the 50 years ago now, feels like kind of a historic event for me. And there aren't that many 50th year reunions I expect to go to.
Okay, hi. I'll turn around. My name is Jill Hoffman, and I am from Merrill in the early 70s, but I can't remember anymore when it was. Oh, good. When did I graduate? I was graduated in Community Studies, second BA. I did my second BA here. You can't find me.
I will find you.
Oh,
It's just
no,
so
I'll
tiny,
stand up
my
so you can
eyes.
Okay,
David.
so you can totally see me.
1971, Jill. You graduated
Oh my
in
God,
71.
I graduated. Okay, hi, I was in your class. Yeah. Basically I come here because I want to find out what Merrill is doing now. And last year I came and I just was thoroughly amazed at all the changes. And I sort of reinvented coming back as often as I can. Thank you. Always welcome. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm David Pace, and I was a Merrill student, graduated in '86. I just sent Elizabeth, or you got a copy of my graduation photo, I think, that you saw. So I never left. I stayed in Santa Cruz, and one of the reasons why I came is because I'm an alum from Merrill, but the other reason is my wife, who works with Elizabeth, so she also, it's mandatory for me to be here. And ironic that she ends up working in Merrill.
It's what?
It's, I think, kismet.
Serendipitous. Yes.
This is Jerry Milstein, who's my friend. I'm Terry Cooley Cook. He's to see Mark and Linda.
Yeah.
And you. Welcome back, Terry.
Thank you.
And what was your graduation year?
I graduated from Stevenson in '98. I came here as an RA in, 68, and then I came here in '69 as an RA and finished a second degree, but I don't think I actually graduated.
Well, welcome back, and welcome, Terry. Roberto.
Good morning, I'm Roberto Ocampo. I almost didn't make it because we were renting a house out on, by the harbor. A little,
The harbor.
little place, you know. But, there was a water pipe that broke. So we still don't have any water.
I live by the island where you can come over to my house and use the water.
Take a shower, I don't know.
You can, I've got a shower too.
My
A
wife,
bathtub.
my wife didn't come because she said, I'm not going to have a shower. So I graduated from Merrill in, what was it, 75, I'm sorry. In 75, yeah, and I keep coming back. I live in Salinas, which is not very far, so I keep coming back, you know, for events. I've been on the alumni, what do they call it, council, I guess, Alumni Association Council, for, I can't remember, must be 8 or 9 years. It's been a while. So I stay connected with the university, and that's kind of my connection. And we are looking for council people. So if anybody has an interest in maybe serving in the council, we need more people.
And what's the name of that council?
Well, it's the Council for the Alumni Association.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
kind of.
Okay.
There is a need for more. What do we call council board? I don't know what they call it.
So one of those people.
Yeah, one of those people. There's a need for one of those people. And if you have an interest, you know, come see me. So maybe, yeah, because our numbers are low with that. Constantly trying to get numbers back up. So it's great to do.
Right.
Hi, I'm Brian. I graduated from Merrill in 2001, computer engineering. Haven't been to an alumni weekend or been to the campus in a while, so I'm going to come here and show the kids and family.
All right, welcome back.
And I'm Leah. I wasn't ever officially a part of Merrill, but I took astronomy and geology classes over here. I was dual enrolled in Cabrillo, and we met in the UCSC ski team.
Do you have a ski team?
Ski club.
Ski club.
I was dual enrolled with Cabrillo, so I would come over here for my science classes.
And I noticed I skipped Stephanie. So you're sitting here, Stephanie. Why don't you tell us who you are?
Hi, I'm the College Academics Programs intern. I work with Dina, and I'm just working today, setting up the events, helping Dina in anything she needs.
Thanks.
So I'm just gonna remove one word from what you said, the just. Stephanie is one of the people who makes things work around here. There's no diminution about that. All right. Nick, what?
Yeah, I'm going to stand up.
Please.
My back to people. I ran the field program from 69 to 1993, and Roberto went to Mexico through it. And I want to mention very briefly that there was a person here in Latin American Studies named Richard Stover. He died about 8 months ago, and he became Rico Stover, and he did a field study. I wrote about him, but he did a field study through John Martin. He got some money, and he went down and got some music from a Paraguayan musician named Barrios. He came back and published the music, and John Williams, who's one of the great guitarists, recorded it. So Rico is a Merrill graduate who became internationally known. All the classical guitarists in the world play Barrios' music, and many have knew Rico. So, and the only comment I would say is, when I came here, because the faculty had college appointments along with the departments, I got to know people in all sorts of departments that if I came here now, I wouldn't. That was a really wonderful thing, to meet biologists and mathematicians and other people here.
And another Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm also here working for Dina for helping with the programs. So it's really nice to be here and see what alumni weekend is about.
Thank you for being here. So I wanted to give you a kind of a series of updates because you tend to come back annually or every 18 years, depending on your circumstances. And things change in those intervals, and they change on a variety of different levels, campus-wide, in the colleges themselves, at our college, and so on. I wanted to start with a campus update, and some of you may have heard, and some of you may not have heard. We have I think it is popularly appropriate to say things like, we have a great opportunity coming, and we also have a great challenge coming, in that we have a change of leadership, not just our chancellor, who has served as chancellor of the institution for 12 years, but also our relatively new executive vice chancellor, who is a huge dynamo of change on this campus. She too is leaving after 2 years to take the presidency of Boise State University. So both George Blumenthal and Marlene Trump are going to be leaving as of June 30th. And it's a major changeover in leadership. Now, what I do know is that we have a chancellor coming, but I don't know who the chancellor is. I believe I may be finding out on Monday when the new chancellor is going to be evidently touring my house. But until then, I don't know. And we are in very, very good hands with an interim executive vice chancellor and campus provost, Lori Klutzer, who has served in a number of leadership positions and I have worked with her on the Academic Senate. I find her terrific. We have a process that has been underway for several years called the Strategic Academic Plan. It may surprise those of you who have spent time in business that UC Santa Cruz, as far as I know, has maybe never had a strategic plan. It has had a whole array of strategic plans, but not a strategic academic plan. Maybe it has had them, they've never, not in my time here, which is also actually 18 years. The Strategic Academic Plan has been underway. The creation of it has been underway for quite a while, a couple of years, a lot of work, and it's been under the leadership of our current executive vice chancellor, who is about to leave. So that's tricky. But one of the key elements of the Strategic Academic Plan, it has a series of design design principles, and included among those design principles are significant opportunities for the colleges. So for those of you, most of you here, who have experienced the heyday of the colleges and then saw a significant change taking place in the organization of the university away from the colleges towards a more traditional departmental organization. This is not going to reverse that in any way, but what it is going to do, or makes visible, are the opportunities that the colleges offer the university for partnerships with the departments, for partnerships with the divisions, for, as we college provosts have been saying for a number of years, for the colleges essentially provide a kind of liminal or in-between space that is not strictly affiliated with departmental structures. Liminal spaces are always extremely valuable, especially at times of change. We are in a time of extraordinary change, and the liminal spaces of the colleges, literally, we have spaces like this space, and procedurally and governmentally, we have spaces. We can make things happen in the colleges that are much harder to take place in the departments with their usual structures and their you know, their focus on research, their focus on hiring new research faculty and so on. So we can, what we provosts like to say is the colleges keep the liberal arts in the liberal arts education. There are opportunities for us to take hold of with this new strategic academic plan, including, I will note, through the wisdom of a former provost and a former campus provost, the building next door, Casa Latina, when it was built, there was an unplanned basement space. The campus provost at the time said to John Isbister, you know, here's your opportunity, make an office suite. And so an office suite was made, and I'm looking forward to having that space house a new campus organization on community engaged scholarship, which is right up Merrill's alley. So we won't be running the program, but we will be housing the space, and it will provide opportunities for our students. Another thing that is happening on the campus, a serious initiative that began this year, is something called the internationalization effort. This is through a national organization called ACE, the Academic Something of Educators, something like that. It's although I can't remember what the acronym means, I do know that this effort is a very serious effort. It's involving a number of different players on this campus, and it's an effort to expand our connections internationally, expand the opportunities for our students beyond education abroad, but including education abroad, expand the connections amongst our faculty with researchers and other institutions abroad, bring more students here for 1 year education abroad on their account, and so on. It should be fruitful, and it has some connections for us, which I'll get to in a moment. Another thing that you no doubt already knew about or learned about by walking through the very polite gauntlet in the outside the building is that a very significant new housing project has been approved by the Regents for the East Meadow. It's called Student Housing West. It will bring about 3,000 more beds online on campus, which is going to be shocking to any of you, all of you, who, when we started, there were fewer than 3,000 students here. And even in 1986 or 2001, 3,000 students, I mean, that's 2 colleges worth of students. What it will do, wherever it is built,
Thank you for that caveat.
I'm going to say I think it's going to be built on the East Meadow, but wherever it is built, it will significantly ease the misery of our students on campus. So even if we do not grow beyond the current size of the campus now, and our top leadership in the academic senate system-wide has suggested recently maybe Santa Cruz is as big as it should be. Maybe. I mean, I think yes, but we don't know how to stop it exactly. But if we grow no more, the Student Housing West will improve circumstances significantly for our students by making reasonably affordable housing available to students, so that our students, our transfer students, have more housing, and our incoming first and second year students are not crammed in 3 students to a room, as they are in your old dorm rooms. or or occupying almost all of our lounges, so that they have no study spaces besides Casa Latina, the library, outdoor spaces where they can find them. So Student Housing West, wherever it is, has to be built.
What is the number of students it's in?
College has about 1,600 students active at a time.
As opposed to 600, which is what was planned for?
Oh, well, also, I mean, in truth, Terry, what was also planned for is 20 colleges
Oh, no, I
that would have
understand.
filled in the Great Meadows. So,
Yeah.
so
No, I
things have,
understand.
lots of things have changed, but yes,
Numbers wise.
yes,
It is about the maximum where it was designed for.
yeah, bigger actually than, yeah. So there's that. I want to point out two other campus-wide changes that are either have launched or are underway, and they are curricular changes. The first is the academic literacy curriculum, which just launched this year after 3 very intense years of planning, proposals, negotiation, and so on. The academic literacy curriculum encompasses core and includes the writing curriculum. Now, for some years, the colleges have, their core classes have simultaneously satisfied the college requirement, which is the core class, and a writing requirement. And it became clearer over time, but it started becoming evident almost immediately that the combination of those things was too much for a core class to bear. It's hard to introduce students to university life, to acclimate them to what it is to be a student at the university, to teach them engage them in the intellectual concerns of a specific college, and to teach them the critical elements of university level writing all in the same class, among other things. And it was too much for the college core classes to bear. And we went into a long series of planning, years of planning, and trial proposals and so on. This year, I guess as an institution, we don't like piloting things. We just leapt right in, and all 10 colleges began their new core courses. The core courses are collectively called Academic Literacy and Ethos. Each core course maintains the intellectual engagements of the colleges themselves. So Porter is still focused on arts, and Merrill is still interested in its engagement with the world and social justice, and Rachel Carson College is still interested in sustainability and ecology, and so on. However, although each college is, in addition to maintaining its intellectual history, each college is also adhering to a central set of outcomes that involve, we have an acronym because UC Santa Cruz and UC always has an acronym. Our acronym is ACMES, A-C-M-E-S, and it stands for Analysis, Critical Thinking, Metacognition, Engagement with Others Across Difference, and Self-Efficacy, which I can translate for you.
Lost already.
All right.
Would you repeat that?
I will, because all of those things are what incoming students need to know how to do and need to have named for themselves so that they know what they're doing, so that when they move into other courses, they are equipped with the toolbox that will enable them to learn effectively in other courses. So metacognition, for instance, I'm just going to choose that one. Metacognition is knowing about knowing. It is being alert to the things that you know, so that you know how to make them portable to another setting. That's critical. Being able to name the things that you know is critical to be able to say, oh, it's not that I learned about, it's not that I learned about the secret war in Laos in Merrill Corps. It's that I learned how to do certain analytical procedures. I learned some principles of critical thinking. I learned about effective methods of collaboration in my Merrill Corps course by reading about this secret war. I'm going to take that into my chemistry class. Okay. So that's what CORE is meant to do. It's what we are, we've launched. Let's call this year 0 rather than year 1, because, you know, when you launch anything, it's, you find out all the things you need to do differently, right? But I would say that I'm just going to pat all of us on the back a little bit and say, of all the college core classes, the new Merrill core class has how can I put this really diplomatically? It's the best one. Yeah, so I'll just leave it. It's being recognized by my colleagues in the writing program as the course that has, the students from Merrill Core course are generally the ones who are best equipped to go into their subsequent writing courses. And because the core course is the first stage of what we're now calling the academic literacy curriculum, that's essential. We need to make that mesh really good. And the academic literacy curriculum as a whole is a game changer for first year education at UCSC, but I'm also going to say I think we may have bragging rights for, if this all works out as planned, we may wind up having bragging rights as having created a curricular game changer nationally. This is it's a big deal what we have done. And of course we did it with 4,000 students, all of us. So that was something.
When you say 4,000, is that the incoming class at
Yes.
the university level?
Every single core class. So each incoming class, each college class is about 400.
Can I ask another question? Sure. Is this because high schools are failing to get people to understand these concepts?
Well, I wouldn't say that that's the case universally. I do think that there are challenges, educational challenges at all levels in the public education system. I don't think anybody has ever taught, I shouldn't say ever, I think high school teachers are often at the forefront of things like concepts like metacognition, appropriately scaled for high school students and so on. But it's in pockets and it's not universalized. And I also think that, you know, the state of California has an amazing, rich diversity of all kinds of things, populations, ideas, and so on. We've suffered a lot from our, you know, since Prop 13, and we have a lot of repair to do. I want to bring this back. I don't think, I would say yes, like I'm a writing teacher, so I have never stopped fighting against the 5-paragraph theme that probably all of us learned to write in high school. I've never stopped saying to my students, I keep teaching the same damn thing over and over again, you know, so that we can get beyond the 5-paragraph theme. I don't even remember why I brought that up, but I can say that actually the 5-paragraph theme has been around since Harvard expository writing program invented it in like 1870. So it's not that things have been going downhill, you know, in our public education system precipitously. It's that they kind of been there for, there have been challenges all along.
You're changing the paradigm.
Yeah, we're trying to, and I think things like, so the E in ACME's engaging with others across difference. One thing that was really key in that calling it that. So when we say engaging with others across difference, we mean things like collaboration. So if I think about all the collaborative projects that I was engaged in high school and elementary school and so on, they were all kind of disasters because nobody knew, like we were told to work together and then you know, the usual bad things happen. Sometimes serendipitously good things happen. But so we're teaching actively what it means to collaborate effectively. But the other piece of that I don't want to forget is its engagement with others across difference. And so what we have actively said with that prepositional phrase, across difference, is we've actively said difference is an asset and not a deficit. So we are saying we're moving away from the deficit model and we're moving towards what can we learn from each other. Everyone is coming into this institution with funds of knowledge that they have acquired through their own backgrounds. So difference as an asset. And that's really key because one of the things that we've done is back to the old model of core, where it wasn't tracked by competency level in writing. So for the last 10 or 12 years before the new core, we had been tracking the classes which had actually introduced inadvertently a new model of segregation in our core classes. That's no good. We've put everybody back together in the same classes again, and we've said we're going to make it work. We're going to make it work. And we're going to make it work via, you know, teaching collaborative strategies and so on. Okay, so that's core. We also have in the works, on the residential life side, what is typically called residential education in universities, and is also called residential education here, is actually collegiate education, collegiate curriculum, where each college's residential life staff is working on developing a college life curriculum that encompasses college programming, the RAs, the leadership from above in the college life system that is tied once again to the intellectual themes of each college. So instead of having a generic residential life curriculum for every college, each college is tying its sort of education for life curriculum to the intellectual ethos of the college itself, which is going to, I'm looking at Linda and Jill and Mark, and this should be something more like what you experienced when the colleges, Terry, when the colleges were 600 people. Okay, so tying together the res life side and the curricular side more closely to the ethos of each college. Okay, so that's campus-wide what is happening. Merrill College, what's happening here I told you something already about our Merrill College core class. And just, you know, now it has many subtitles. Academic literacy, it's called Merrill 1. And it's academic literacy and ethos is the generic title. And reading ourselves, reading the world is the local title. And the reason it's the focus on reading is actually, I forgot to tell you this part. One of the big innovations of our new core classes campus-wide is that the big mistake we were making when we made writing classes and core classes intermeshed was that we forgot that in order to write well, you need to be able to read well. Okay, and that's the thing, it is such a solid, it is so, this is the way writing classes operate in the world. You get to college, you start taking your writing classes, right? Because everybody needs to learn how to write, and there's so many complaints, kids these days, they cannot write. Well, there's a reason that in 1870, Harvard invented that, the 5-paragraph theme. It's because kids these days, they can't write, and it turns out Aristotle was saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So like way back when, the guy who invented the university, the complaint has always been the same. Well, there are any number of reasons that kids can't write, but one of the big reasons, really, is do students fully understand what it is that we've been asking them to read in the way we expect them to know how to read? Everybody comes to the university knowing how to read. Everyone does. They just don't know how to read the way we read. Why? Because we haven't taught them. So, our core classes are there to teach students how to read in the university way, so that they can then go on and do everything else they need to do in the university way. So, reading and then writing, it makes sense. It makes sense. So, that's core. Also at Merrill.
Is core a 1-quarter course or a 3-quarter?
It is, you know, bless you, Linda.
Sorry.
That was, really, I wish it were 3 quarters. We have a 1-quarter core course, and you know, talk about the mistakes we make. I know I need to cut out all kinds of things from our new core course, because 10 weeks is not that much time, but that's what we have. Stevenson still has a 2-quarter core course, but that's what we have. A thing that is closer to just Merrill, although it's not just Merrill, is something called the College Math Academy. So the College Math Academy exists now at 4 colleges, at Crown and Merrill in the fall quarter, and Oaks and Rachel Carson in this winter quarter. College Math Academy is a 1-quarter course. It's a pre-calculus course. It's taught in groups of about 40 students apiece. So we have a couple of classes. It might just be 1 section each quarter. Is it 1 section each quarter?
1 section.
Yeah. So 1 section each quarter, 40 students. Now, what makes this, and then the students have an additional couple of meetings each week in groups of 20 students apiece. They've got a section, and then they've also got meetings with, what's the other part, Dina? It's 3 different kinds of meetings.
Right, they have a section with the TA, they also have a section with the professor with 20, and sometimes the professor does all 40
Yeah.
an additional time.
Okay, so basically the students are meeting to talk about math, pre-calculus, 3 times a week. This is a program that has been funded by one of our Hispanic Serving Institution grants. And it is, what makes it special is that ordinarily these pre-calculus courses are taught in lectures of 300. And what we had noticed campus-wide is that when you teach a course as a lecture of 300, the differential pass rates and grade rates for different subpopulations of students are profoundly noticeable. And what we discovered, what we thought might work, is if we went to a seminar model for pre-calculus as opposed to a giant lecture model for pre-calculus, we might see the equity gap disappear. And indeed, we're seeing the equity gap disappear. Big surprise. So it's hard to afford. Right now, this is funded by a grant. The grant has one more year on it, but our assessment is already showing this is a model that works. This is particularly important because we have so many students who are first-generation college students, many of them from Latinx or Chicanx backgrounds who aim to be STEM majors here. You need to get through pre-calculus to get to calculus and so on. If these opportunities are foreclosed to them because the methodology of teaching doesn't work for them, then that forecloses all kinds of things. But this class, and Merrill is in on the pilot, is making a difference. I want to mention also our Focus on Africa class. This goes back to the campus-wide internationalization. We've had an alumnus, Melvin Cox, teaching this class for a number of years, starting with the year in which he proposed to me, hey Elizabeth, I'd like to bring a bunch of students to Africa. And I said, well, okay, but you need to make it academic. And so he taught a year-long series of classes in order to prepare a group of students, and we sent 11 students to Africa. We have not done that kind of heavy lifting again, and indeed it was heavy lifting, especially for Melbourne. But we have continued to have this class, which attracts a group of students campus-wide that is, I think, unique on the campus. This quarter is a little bit of an exception, but most quarters, Melvin's class attracts African American students from across the colleges. There are students almost always, there are students from every college. Most of the students in the class, though never all of the students in the class, are African American. But Melvin has also uniquely, this class has attracted students who are themselves second-generation immigrants. So their parents are immigrants from various different countries in Africa. I don't think I've ever seen a class that does that. So it's super interesting to see the demographics. And quite marvelously, one of the things that Melvin has really been trying to do for quite a while is, can we make a formal connection with someplace in Africa? Can we get a program going? And we have, just this last week, we had an unexpected visitor from Kenya. And she wasn't just anyone from Kenya. She happens to be one of three number 2 people at a university called the Cooperative University of Kenya, who came to visit. And we set her up with meetings with various people on campus. The upshot of this is, though nothing formal has been signed, we haven't got an MOU, we need to write the MOU first. It looks like we're in a very good position to have Merrill College sponsoring a 5-week summer session at the Cooperative University of Kenya that will be focused on African culture, and with a focal point of an annual music festival that takes place in Nairobi. We'll have partners in the Cooperative University of Kenya at a home base there, and we'll also have the opportunity to provide classes that are specific to the interests of our students. So this is all, it's right now in the we've just imagined this stage, but we're looking at 2021 as a launch for that, which I want to say should also be tied to our field program. So it's focus on Africa and field study at the same time. If you look on our website or on this flyer, densely packed, and you'll need your reading glasses for it, you'll see descriptions of other courses and programs that we offer at Merrill, including the undergraduate research mentorship program, the Careers in Public Service program, which is a course that came out of discussions with alumni. So I particularly want to name Peter Braun and the wonderful enthusiasm for a course that brings alumni back to speak to current Merrill students about their own careers in public service. So this is, I think it's a particularly wonderful class. There are equivalent classes at Stevenson, careers in science and technology, careers in the law. Careers in public service is such a Merrill class. This is our students go on, as I've said over and over in meetings like this, our students go on to work in the public wheel in one way or another. And this class opens some doors, has students meet alumni who can help open doors and have helped open doors, but more particularly has, it's not, the world of public service is very wide, and careers, like college itself, are a kind of black box until you're in them. So when students come to the university, they don't really know what we mean when we say disciplines. So there are disciplines that students know about. Computer science, that's a really, really especially popular discipline right now because Silicon Valley and so on. Biology, you know, everybody takes biology in high school, everybody knows that that's a discipline. And it can lead to med school. English, though we don't have English here, we have literature. Things like that. Those are, you know, people know about those things, but do they know about technology and information management? Do they really know what anthropology is? Do they know what community studies is? No. Same thing with careers. We know what a mayor is. We know what a volunteer is, but public service? What is that? We know what a politician is, for better or for worse. But do we know what a career in public service is? So this class opens up, shines some light inside the black box. Class going strong. Mike Rockin is still teaching that class. Yes. After you know, he just like he's the this is going to sound terrible. The little engine that could? No. He's a force, and he's a force for good because the students who take that class tend to come back to the class, tend to want to continue getting. Working with the organizations that they work with, and frequently go on and put another couple quarters in. I also want to say our Classroom Connection class, we've had a spectacular enthusiasm for Classroom Connection, especially because we have had a dedicated student administrator for that class who has this year, for instance, organized a workshop for parents up in Pescadero so that they could understand what to do with financial aid letters. So you're a parent who works in agriculture. You're an immigrant yourself. You may or may not speak English fluently. Your child has applied to college, which is fantastic, and gets a financial aid letter. Now what? what do we do with the gap between what's being provided and what our means are? And that's what the financial aid workshop was about. Like, don't take this as a no, take this as a yes. And we've also had our Pescadero students come to UC Santa Cruz for their annual tour, so that students from this community will understand what college looks like and what college students look like. Okay, so I've said a whole bunch of things about the campus and about Merrill College itself. I want to now say a few things about the Merrill Society. So you're here for the Merrill Society breakfast, and you may be wondering, what is the Merrill Society? So the Merrill Society for a number of years has been operating as a kind of friends group at UCSC, a specific, like a little alumni association for the college itself. You've heard the Merrill Society has developed ideas for and helped support some of the Merrill curriculum. It may not be, you may not be aware, and it was kind of shocking to me to discover that although I had been thinking about this constantly for a number of years, it turns out a lot of people weren't aware that classes other than the core classes are not funded by the state. So the only classes that we get funding for are core classes, and everything else we have to raise the money for. So the Merrill Society is interested in raising funding so that we can have a robust curriculum, including field study and careers in public service, and focus on Africa. So the Merrill Society has been interested in growing our curriculum, has been interested in supporting Merrill students who particularly need support. We run reports on DACA students here in this space at this time. We have done particular fundraising efforts for students who are short of funds to buy books or pay for housing or pay for food. I don't know if you know this about UCSC students, but 40% of them at one point or another will be food insecure, which is astonishing to think of in California in higher education. But the Merrill Society is also, it has been a very small group of active participants. And so partly what I wanted to do in this meeting is to say to you, do you want to be part of a Merrill Society, or shall we just carry on having these annual meetings where I update you or someone updates you, and I call on individuals for the help that they can provide. I guess a question that I might ask is, going back to the beginning when I asked you what brings you back here, is what would bring you back for the Merrill Society? What do you think a Merrill Society ought to be doing? And I know that we're actually over time at this moment, but if I were to leave you with that question, it's perhaps something that you can meditate on a little bit. I asked all of you when you came in were signed up on our roster there, and I think what I'll be doing is reaching out to you after this weekend and asking you, what do you want a Merrill Society to accomplish? Do you want to be part of something formal? Do you want to have this be an annual updating event? What do you want to see happening? We have my usual plaint is, we have very little staff. It's hard for us to start new stuff, although we have managed to start new stuff almost every year since I've been reporting. But funding is also a huge issue. And I don't want to say to you, pony up. What I want to say really is, how do we solve this problem? How do we maintain the liberal arts in the liberal arts curriculum of the college that we love? And how do we maintain a robust Merrill community that doesn't stop with graduation from college? So with that, I'm happy to hang around. Many of you may have other things to do, but I'm also happy to take questions or just have a conversation, or see you again at the Noel King lecture. We have a wonderful speaker. Her name is Mercy Odoyuye, and she comes from Ghana. And so we have these wonderful pictures here. That's at 2:30 this afternoon, and after that there will be a reception at my house. And then tomorrow morning, I hope you'll be able to come back for lunch at my house. Extremely beautifully organized by Dina and her team.
Where is that lecture?
Oh, so the lecture is, I should have said, at the Cultural Center at Merrill, your old dining hall.
It's the one on the other side, the big
It's
room.
the big room where you used to eat dinner.
See, I never used to, we didn't have that.
all right.
But I'll go look.
Yeah. It's kind of, go through our gatehouse and you'll see it. It's the big building. So that's at 2:30, reception at my house immediately afterwards, brunch tomorrow morning at my house at 10:30, and I'll look forward to seeing you there. Thanks so much for coming. Yeah, you have an idea?
I don't know if it's super large, but one of the things that brings me back more and more to UCSC are the different lectures that I get emails about. If Merrill were to create a series of maybe 3 or 4 during the quarter that alumni could come to, that would be fantastic. Because then more people could come, and even people out of the university would learn what the university is doing and donate.
Well, one possibility would be attendance at our plenary lectures in the core class. So, and if we were able to videotape those, for instance, then that would make, it wouldn't bring people to the campus, but it would bring people to what Merrill is teaching. A couple of the other colleges have actually created special opportunities for alumni to participate in the new core class. So if any of you feel like revisiting your time as scholars, I think the new core course is a pretty interesting thing. So I haven't yet figured out how we would do that, but I think it would be a possibility.
And what about having like, I keep on getting these things from the CRAW lectures.
Oh yeah, the CRAW lectures.
Are there any series of lectures at Merrill that people could attend?
We have our annual Noel King lecture. That's what we.
But that's the only, not during throughout the year, if you had smaller groups that could maybe get more people.
So I am accepting that as a suggestion.
But we're not into the, we're just a brainstorming.
Yeah.
There's no need to, that was immediately.
We don't have a series, but we have that, which is kind of a big deal. Huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just logistically, one thing I noted when I was trying to do my donation last year was, because it went through the foundation office, I think. Anyway, to get them to direct it back to Merrill was a little confusing.
Oh.
So I just want you, I gotta work on that, but.
It was really helpful last year when you mentioned that scholarship fund, when we had somebody who was a DACA student come up, a whole panel, and it was like, there was no way I could walk out without a check, so, without writing a check. So those kinds of things that could be created would be amazing.
Yeah.
Because, or if you have a special fund and you send out a letter to us saying, hey, funding is needed for this, blah, 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 and we could do that. And then I write a check.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, no, sorry, I come up with ideas all the time.
What you were just saying, Linda, if you do your donation starting from the Merrill website, it will immediately drop you into the chute for Merrill.
The trick is that I'm doing it out of my IRA. So it has to be done in a very specific way.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the trick.
Well, yeah, okay. Do we have any of our, are any of our UR people still here?
No,
Okay.
she's gone, but, maybe I can.
They were nice, I talked to them many times.
No, but I'm hearing what you're saying, so I think we need to make the pipeline much,
Pipeline must be
Yeah.
easier,
yeah,
that's all.
got it. Thank you. Yes, Dave?
You know, I think that brings up kind of one of the issues that I've just seen, and that is that being that the core course is the only one that's funded, and everything else, you have to raise the money with your small staff and all the obligations you have. And maybe this is breaking boundaries, but the development departments here at UCSC need to really step up and support your efforts so you don't have that burden, and it's even just hard enough to get it directed, let alone helping with the fundraising. That just, you know, I don't know if there's any possibility there, but all the fundraising is on your shoulders, and that's not your core competency here. And that's a structural issue, I think, at
You
UCSC.
can say that again.
Yes. So I don't know if there's a, if there's a way to get,
On the
that
other
seems to
hand,
be a structural problem
Someone from the
here.
foundation office made a visit to our home after I made the donation, so that was a good thing.
And what about the Merrill Society, thinking that I'm having alumni, not me, but having other alumni help with it, be sponsoring those things and making them happen?
We have tried that, so
Oh.
that's, it's not to say that that won't work, it
Oh.
does work, it's just, it's hard.
Cumbersome.
It's hard, and especially because it's not as if you don't have other lives to do. I think once again, UR is shifting its structure, and there is going to be a dedicated colleges person
Good.
starting pretty soon.
Oh, great.
But it's an ongoing process. And actually we're always trying to find the right combination of things.
You
Yeah.
have an amazing faculty,
Yes, we do.
even if they were able to talk or speak, to the community, that would be amazing. Yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
No. I'm not saying, I'm thinking about what I haven't done, but you are 100% correct. And having the names, Nick's name, for instance, I'm overdue on sending a letter out, but having the names of recognizable faculty makes a huge difference. Yeah. All right, I don't want to belabor this point, but if anybody wants to ask me anything about anything having to do with Merrill or the campus, I'm happy to share whatever I can with you. And I hope to see you at other events this weekend. And welcome back to UC Santa Cruz and to Merrill College. I'm really glad that you came.
Thank you
Thanks
very
very
much.